Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
The Daily Compliance News for August 18, 2021, the Sacklers threatened to pull out edition. And we begin with that story as the Sackler family announced to the bankruptcy court that it would pull out of the Purdue Pharma opioid settlement of $4.5 billion unless they're granted broad legal immunity. The immunity is so broad that even the court has some concerns about its breadth. The Sackler family said that they wanted full immunity for them, not only themselves, but up to 1,000 other people. So this unprecedented immunity has become a big sticking point in this bankruptcy. Where it goes from now, we'll have to wait for the court to rule. Next up from Bloomberg, the first of 2 stories about Afghanistan. The U.S. freezes nearly $9.5 billion in Afghan central bank assets that were in the, a portion of which were in the Federal Reserve and U.S.-backed based financial institutions. The sanctions mean that the Taliban cannot access the funds, although the vast majority of the Afghani assets are currently not held in Afghanistan, so they may have difficulty accessing that money. So first blow of sanctions from the U.S. The second Afghan story comes from Dick Casson at the FCPA Blog, who said that the loud warnings of Afghan corruption really never stopped, and that the root cause of this spectacular failure, as I have also opined, is endemic corruption. That was the assessment from a Special Inspector General for Afghanistan as far back as 2008. His report to Congress at that time that the failure to effectively address systemic corruption meant the U.S. reconstruction effort was, at best, would be subverted and at worst would fail, and that's exactly what happened. Congress had apportioned over $143 billion for Afghan reconstruction efforts following military action in 2001, and the majority of this money, of course, just evaporated. Even in 2020, a survey of Afghan citizens by the Asia Foundation said that 85% reported corruption was a major problem in their daily life, and 95% said corruption was a major problem of the country as a whole. So the endemic corruption of Afghanistan literally led to the Taliban's resurgence and taking back over the company. And finally, from the Wall Street Journal, more supply chain woes for shippers as cargo ships and container ships are stacking up off of South California ports as a flood of imports and log jams and domestic logistic networks hit the U.S. biggest gateways for seaborne trade. 37 container ships were anchored off the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach in recent days, and the highest number since February. There are hundreds of thousands of boxes stuffed with goods for manufacturers and retailers in the U.S. as they try to restock their inventories. This is becoming a major problem, and we're hearing major endemic corruption outside the United States around shipping companies paying bribes to get their crews unloaded. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.